Hello and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin Powers. I'm also the festival director and program director for Something Wicked Film Festival and Events. And I want to welcome you to the show. Now, today we have a great show in line for you. Hopefully, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite films that may or may not be what you're expecting, as though we normally talk about horror films, and the film that we're going to be discussing today is like a borderline horror film. So we're going to be discussing the film Lake Placid, and to discuss this giant crocodile film with me will be Dave Watkins. Say hello, Dave, to everybody.
Thanks for having me on again, Kevin. It's good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. The reason why I say this is because I am a big lover of giant crocodile, alligator, snake movies, everything that's ridiculously stupid and fun with these giant monster films, because I think when you step into any movie with a giant monster, you have to think about how silly they are. The concept automatically is when you're walking in. You can't expect, the Seventh Samurai or Jimbo here. You got to expect something that's a little bit more on the edge. And Lake Placid is one of those films for me that skirts both being a really great popcorn film and then a really decent like PG-13 film. So let's get started with talking about Lake Placid. And I would really, really want to know, Dave, what are your impressions about this film? And, make sure to tell us all your thoughts.
Okay. So this, I'm kind of in agreement with you for the most part. I think this movie is a blast, and it does have that, say, popcorn film. That's a good way to describe it. It has this kind of camp quality to it, but it doesn't go overboard with it, and it has the right mixture of horror and comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And the other elements in this, I mean, the thing about it though, this has a really good script. It has a script that flows really well. It sets up whether it be a comedy gag or a horror gag, or something that jumps out at you. They do a good job, and it's, to me, it's the character interactions. They have these in the cast, these actors in this, like Bill Pullman and Bridget Fonda, Brendan Gleeson, Oliver Platt. They were kind of. It seems like these characters are almost written for them to play, and they just kill it. And then the movie looks amazing. It is a kind of almost like an adventure movie, and most of it takes place outside. And I don't have nothing but good stuff to say. I might come up with some bad stuff, but we'll see.
So you touch on a lot of great elements on this film. The reason why I love this film. First of all, I'm going to talk about the cast. The cast is amazing in this film, and you might be right that David E. Kelley, who wrote the film, may have helped and produced. So he produced and wrote the film. May have put together a great cast, because this is they have such synergy and such chemistry, these four actors whose characters are so different from each other,
right? And yeah, that's the conflicting personalities, and the way that they get on each other's nerves, and they're in these kind of extreme situations. And it's funny the way they set it, and they have a lot of group scenes. Like they'll set up a scene, and they all go out on a boat, and then somebody gets killed, or all of a sudden a moose head gets thrown into the boat, and the way each one of those gags happens, and it kind of escalates into a different, it's like comedy, and then suddenly someone's head gets cut off, and it's like, okay, which is still funny. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is when you're watching the film, I didn't notice this until I rewatched it, because this is a different type of giant monster film. If you haven't seen Lake Placid, just the one thing I need to tell you is that it does not have a bunch of teenagers getting killed in this movie. This is not your typical giant monster movie. In fact, after the first person gets killed, it is a search and destroy mission from the beginning to the end. A lot of things happen in between, but you don't see the typical things that you see in a monster movie. There's no big resort that's opening up and a bunch of teenagers dancing in the water or swimming in the water that's about to get killed by a giant crocodile. There's no family ties like Jaws. It's not my son who's in the water, any of that type of stuff. This is literally, you have a scientist, a crocodile hunter, a cop, and a wildlife game guy who are working together to actually try and either kill or capture the crocodile. And that's pretty much what they're doing from beginning to end of the film. Very few people die in this movie. I didn't realize. It's like only two people die in this film. It makes it seem like there's so many more because it's so freaking funny and there's so many great gags in the film, which I really enjoyed having rewatched the movie.
Is that the only two people die in the
Yeah,
movie?
the diver at the very beginning,
Yeah, right. And
and
then the guy gets his head. Yeah,
the cop. That's it.
right. Well, I think the thing that like you don't want these characters to die really because like you like there seem like there's some other times where it seems like they after the cop gets killed and then they have another like kind of random person on the boat the next time you expect that person to get killed again but then they don't
Mhm.
but generally you don't the four main characters you don't really want them to get killed even though they're often in a situation where they could easily get killed but then they don't.
Oliver Platt, especially, you think that he's going to get killed at sometimes. Some of the scenes, and there are some great suspense scenes where it feels like he or that female cop are going to die at some point by this crocodile, yet they never do. The suspense in the movie is really well done, and I have to give that to the director Steve Miner, who surprisingly when I rewatch this film, this may be the best film that he's directed with the suspense aspects to it. I know he's did Friday the 13th and Halloween movies before, and
Well, I want to throw a couple others out.
oh,
This is a cheesy movie, but it's one of my favorites because I think I saw it when I was really young. It's called House with William Catt in it and George Wendt. You ever seen that? And
I love
Richard
that
Mole.
movie.
Yeah. That's one of those where I watch it and then someone sees me watching it and they're like, "This shit looks stupid," but it's like they got the puppet monsters in it and even like the skeleton monster at the end, the Big Ben and all that. But I think I don't care that it looks like people think it looks cheesy. I'm just
I love, and we will be talking about House in the future episode because that's one of my favorite movies, and even House 2 I can enjoy.
I've
Uh,
actually got a box set that has all four House movies in it, even though the third one is completely unrelated, and then the last one has William Catt back in it, but it doesn't seem like he's quite playing the same character.
no, he doesn't.
Yes.
That's the only one I don't own is the fourth one because I think it only came in with that box set.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that one was made for TV. But I've seen the first one and the second one a lot of times. But the other two are not. Are kind of like I don't know. The third one is actually a lot like Shocker to me.
Yes.
That movie Shocker, but it's got a good cast with Lance Henriksen, Brian James. But
Yeah. But getting back to Lake Placid, because we all love Steve Miner, and Steve Miner did a lot of great films, and we cannot deny that. But for me,
one more I should point out real quick. Warlock is another one that he did
my
with
God,
Julian Sands. Yeah.
we're adding Warlock to the list. The Warlock is not on the list. We're adding that one because I love that movie. Oh, jeez. Uh, and it is, and I'll just add this: it is a shame what his career has come to now. He's just not doing those type of films anymore. Those great horror films or adventure films, unfortunately. I do hope that he gets back to that. I believe, yeah.
It looks like he's doing one now that looks to be maybe a horror movie, but it seems like and kind of like what we were talking about with some of those other horror directors where they end up doing TV stuff. They did a bunch of horror movies in the 80s and then they just start I guess they kind of segue into TV episodes and directing them.
Yeah. Well, TV is a regular job. And so it's one of those things where, they go to that, they get a steady paycheck, and they hope to do another film, So, but
Maybe that's what they're hoping. They might be like, I just like the paycheck now. I don't know. I'm sure it's a lot of work to do a horror movie.
yeah. So I was looking it up, and I had to remember the last movie that he did that I remember seeing. It was the Day of the Dead remake, which is why
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't mind his trying to make a vegetarian zombie. That was almost an interesting concept, but it was a pretty bad movie. He'd fallen far from his glory days. Uh,
It's hard to remake that movie.
it is.
I didn't see the remake, but I can't imagine it being good. Especially after hearing that it's not good. I'm like I'm convinced it's not good at this point.
You know, I'm a huge fan, or was. I cannot say I am currently, but I can say when I was younger that I was a huge fan of Steve Miner, having watched House, the Halloween movies he did, and I can't. I'm pretty sure he did. I can't remember which Friday 13th, but a lot of the movies that he did in Warlock and all that I knew
Well,
about.
he did H2O. I don't.
Okay, I was gonna say I was
Yeah,
pretty sure he
yeah.
did. I thought he did two Halloween, but I could be wrong about that.
I don't. I mean, that's all I got written down. But I got. He may have
Uh,
done another. I think he just did H2O on the Halloweens. But
But the thing is, he did have an eye for those type of movies when they were coming out. I mean, he was like a go-to guy for horror film. He did some great work in the beginning, and then of course, like you just said, he did television. They kind of fell off. When
but
he
here, yeah, with this movie, like yeah, I mean, I like everything. Like I like the way the movie looks. I like the way the actors are directed. He probably just kind of let the actors go loose on it. To me, it seems it seems which is kind of performances I like. You can feel the actors were loving being there, and they were just. I mean, it was probably a little bit miserable, I would assume, but they seemed like they were loving the energy. That you could tell that. I think in a situation like that, if there was a director and they were trying to keep too tight of a leash on what the actors were doing, it would have been a lot more restrictive, and you wouldn't have felt that energy coming from the scenes.
I agree. I agree. I think this is probably one of the most fun films that Bridget Fonda. I remember seeing Bridget Fonda in, other than Jackie Brown. I think she had a lot of fun in that as well as this film.
This was, I mean, Bridget Fonda. I love her in this movie. Yeah, and she retired from acting a few years after this. It was not. This is one of the movies that I've seen her in. This is probably the last one I've seen her in that she did. She did a few more movies for maybe a couple more years, but then she retired from acting.
Yeah, a great talent that we lost early to retirement, unfortunately. But that happens sometimes. I do like I said, I love the cast for this. But one of the things that you hinted on also is the look of the film. This has and the fact that it feels like an adventure film rather than a horror film. It feels like an adventure film. The way the shots are, the way that where you get to see these very beautiful vistas of the lake. That's right. I want to call it Lake Placid, but it's actually not called Lake Placid in the movie.
Yeah, it's called something else, but I call it Lake Placid.
I remember them saying that Bridget Fonda's character making like a pun. It should be called Lake Placid instead of whatever the name was.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then they said something like, "Oh, that name's already
Start
taken."
taking.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I was like on the behind the scenes stuff. They were talking about how some of it was shot on real locations, but then I mean, not that it wasn't a location, but they actually made their own lake in Canada, and they had control over what was going on for the most part. For especially for the shots at the end when they're with the helicopters and stuff to that nature. But a lot of it was in they had control over the actual lake and even the lighting and stuff because of the way that they set everything up.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it looks terrific. And the thing, when you're shooting outside like that, it's very challenging to begin with. But when you kind of get certain parts of the day, you can, a lot of times it'll be like kind of the golden hour look in some of the scenes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Especially considering how often we see the four main characters out on boats this entire movie, since they're searching for the crocodile and they're always on boats. Like I said, some of the great gags show up when they're in the boat, especially the moose head scene.
Right, right. And I think like Brendan Gleeson's character to me is the funniest because he's so dry and
So
everyone
dry.
seems to it's like everyone all even like Bill Pullman's character, who's kind of like he's in charge because he's the game and wildlife. Even his character picks up on. I guess it's almost like the type of character that anyone who comes into contact with him wants to kind of fuck with him for some reason. It's like kind of like his personality is just like immediately they're going to fuck with him. It's just because.
Yeah, I know, and that's some of the funniest things at the very beginning of the movie when he's describing each of the new characters that come in as sarcastic, and each character has a different type of sarcasm to him.
Yeah.
These are things I didn't notice until the recently when I rewatched the film. I was like, oh my, because I'm a huge fan of David E. Kelly.
Right.
For those of you, he had a huge run of huge hits on television for like the 90s and the 2000s. He's
Yeah.
slowed down a lot since then.
Well, he had a lot of them were legal dramas, and that's kind of where this dialogue comes from. It's so snappy and razor sharp. But he did Ally McBeal, The Practice, Boston Legal,
Yep.
and which isn't legal drama, but he did Picket Fences as well.
They're legal comedies.
Yeah, yeah. Picket Fences was good though.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy, he did several movies, but not much because he was probably too busy doing television. But he did this one in Mystery Alaska around the same time.
Right.
He had a great way of doing these ensemble films and these ensemble character films, and could I say he could bring out the greatest in these actors, but it's not really him, it's his director. He gave actors great dialogue to feed off of in them, and they do a really good job in this movie.
And what's funny is I was watching an interview on the disc I was watching, the Scream Factory Collector's Edition disc, and then I think it was the director of photography was talking about how he gave him the script, and he's like, "This is written by David E. Kelly," and he's like, I thought it was like a joke that I thought he was just saying David E. Kelly wrote it, and I was reading the script, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Maybe he did write it.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I'm actually, I wish he'd write more films because, he has a great knack for it. But this is like we'll get back to it being a giant crocodile movie who just happens to be raised by the immortal Betty White.
Right, yeah.
Steals every scene that she's in this movie. And this is before she had this re-emergence as a pop culture icon.
To me, this movie is probably what brought that into place, because to have her like dropping like F bombs, she calls like Brendan Gleeson's. What's this hilarious? Like her, she fucks with him too. Like she's like she calls him like Officer Fuck Meat or something like that. Like while he's turning around,
Yeah, I honestly, I think you're right. I don't think before this film people really knew that Betty White was so good with cussing out other characters.
Well, when Betty White's character is the standout character that, and when the first time I saw it, it was, I watched Golden Girls a lot because, my parents watched it. It was on TV a bunch. So seeing her in the movie acting the way that she does, it was like, that's awesome. It's
I could say that I was the same as you. I would watch Golden Girls with my mother because I think everybody's mother watched that shit when it was popular.
Yeah. My grandparents watched it too. Actually, my grandmother had a picture in her house. I guess somehow they met the Golden Girls, and she was with not Betty White, but she was with the one that played Dorothy. Was her name Beatrice Arthur? Yeah, Beatrice Arthur. Yeah, but they met them, and I guess they had dinner with them one night, and so they had pictures with them. So I was like, I always thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But Betty White. Now, another good thing before I forget to mention this, because we mentioned what the lake looked like above the water. The underwater cinematography
Right. Yeah.
also amazing in this movie.
Yeah, and there's only a few times where there's at the beginning when the first guy gets killed, and then later on, I guess Oliver Platt and Bill Pullman go underwater at one point, which leaves like Bridget Fonda's character Brendan Gleeson on the boat to fall in the water. Like Bridget Fonda falls in the water. But it does look good though. They do. I mean, they said that part was a kind of relief to them during shooting because they were out shooting on the in November, and it was like freezing cold while they're shooting like the end scene at night where they where they fight the alligator at the very end of it, and then they went and did the tank stuff like the following week, and it was like a relief to get out of that other element, something more controlled.
Oh wow, that's very interesting because the end fight scene that has that whole sequence where Bridget Fonda is underneath the water and
Yeah.
about to get eaten by a crocodile, and she probably enjoyed doing that if it was in the tank.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, they said she was cold. She was cold, but the other actors described her as a trooper, and she would just be like, "All right, let's do it," sort of thing, and just go for it.
I
I think
kind
in
of
between.
Well, I always kind of wonder how that they were able to get these actors in this movie. Oliver Platt I can understand because he did Flatliners, but Bridget Fonda and Bill Pullman and Betty White, it seems like an odd choice for this movie, and yet it works perfectly.
Maybe it was the script by David Kelly. Maybe that's what was a draw at the time because he was kind of well known for doing Ally McBeal.
Yeah. So, by the way, do you know offhand the commentary for this film? Was it David E. Kelly or was it other people who were talking on the commentary?
Unfortunately, there's not a commentary on the collector's edition. I don't know if one exists. I would think it would, if there was one, it would be nice to have like Steve Miner on there.
Yeah.
But they have like a behind the scenes in this interviews. They have interviews with like Bill Pullman. Um, so there's a bunch of the crew people. I think that some of the other actors,
Hmm.
but it didn't have Bridget Fonda on. It was a more recent one. But actually, I had the disc back here. Where'd it go? But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's not a director's commentary. Let's see.
Hmm.
Let's see. It was Steve Miner, Bill Pullman, and the director of photography, Darren. I can't pronounce his last name. Is Okada, maybe? Yeah, and that was all that was on the interviews. But
Huh.
it's cool they got Bill Pullman. So, it's
I always wonder about him. He has this weird knack of doing these small little films and then going off doing these huge films. And he other than ID4, you kind of forget how much work he's actually done. I mean, I always used to think of him as being the guy from The Serpent and the Rainbow, but he's done so much.
but everybody knows him from Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
saw
I like the serpent in the rainbow too, though. But
Well,
what?
horror wise, that's a weird film that you even think of him being in. Spaceballs, most definitely, because I've seen that movie way more times than I
Yeah.
probably ever should have. But we're not talking about some of the greatest comedies on Conversations on Horror.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's some way there's some horror in there at some point, I think.
Wrong type of horror though.
Yeah.
But the ideal is like they brought together these eclectic cast, and yet it's perfectly cast. And because it doesn't have a whole bunch of violence in it, like you didn't realize there was only really two deaths in the whole film.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't even register that, and I'm kind of thinking it's not true, but still, I guess you were really paying attention to that part.
But the thing is, I've never noticed it until I was
Yeah.
rewatching it because what happens is you see the first guy dies, but then you see his head later on. You know,
Yeah. There's
uh,
like a toe too. They found a toe, but that must be probably from the first guy though.
yeah, the toe for the first guy, the head from the second guy, and then the moose. You see the body first, and then you see the head. It becomes like a running joke of all this. But the cast is really small because you don't get to know all the random cops that just show up. You only get to know the one cop who sits with Betty White, the one African American cop, and then of course you get to know the female cop, of which Oliver Platt's hitting on the entire fucking
Right. Yeah.
which I can't remember her name. I've seen that actress in a lot of stuff, and I just can't think of her name. Sorry. If she's listening to this.
Meredith Salinger is her name.
Okay,
I
because
don't know what else she's in though. But yeah, I mean, it's really focused on the main guys, and then you have Betty White's pseudo sort of villain character. I guess she's kind of other than the alligator or the crocodile. Yeah, but I think to me the interactions between Oliver Platt and Brendan Gleeson's character are friggin' like that's gold right there, and it's just because Oliver. So Brendan, if people haven't seen, I'm sure like Brendan Gleeson's character is the cop who's kind of got a stick stuck up his ass, and then so Oliver Platt's character is a rich dude who shows up in a helicopter, who's this is like pre YouTube and all that. So he's like kind of like one of those adventurers who wants to swim with the crocodiles, and that's why he's there. But he's got all this. He's got a lot of money. He's got all these equipment, and so Bill Pullman lets him stay. But then he's at Bill Pullman's the fishing game's over the cop, so he ends up kind of at at odds with Brandon Gleeson's character who doesn't want him there, and
you brought up something I absolutely love, and the interaction between these two characters. And one of my favorite scenes is, of course, the scene where Oliver Platt is trying to apologize or say he's sorry or give his condolences about the officer.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, was it Brandon Gleeson's character gets caught in his trap, and you just Brandon Gleeson's face when he's upside down, and Oliver Platt is just it's priceless, the looks they have on each other.
Now that sequence you're talking about is probably, to me, it's probably the best sequence in the movie, because this is like the ultimate sort of it kind of like a distraction, because what happens after that happens, he's like Oliver Platt's like, he's going to kill me if we cut him down, So, but then he's like, no, he's not going to kill you. And they cut him down, and then he decides he is going to kill him, and he comes after him, and he chases him down to the lake, and then the friggin' bear shows up out of nowhere, and then the crocodile comes out of the water and eats the bear. So the bear gets killed too. So, but that is like, it is like such a distraction that what's going on between those two characters, it makes you think, okay, oh shit, this cop is about to friggin' like go like berserk. He's about to cross the line here with this character he's really mad at. But then it sets it up for the bear to show up, and then the crocodile. So I don't know. It's a friggin' great scene though.
It is a great scene, but that's the thing I love about David E. Kelley. It's kind of like this bait and switch. He has you paying attention to these two characters whose interaction is funny, yet, serious, because it just, he's commenting on the fact that the deputy just got his head killed or chopped off by the freaking alligator. And of course, the bear shows up and gets eaten by the alligator. It's very similar to when that deputy gets his head eaten off by the cop. They're all distracted on Bridget Fonda's character, and then all of a sudden, none of them see when the cop gets his head. They just see what happens afterwards, which is his body falls in the boat, and there's no head, and no one's seen the crocodile except for the audience, of course. Yeah. They barely glimpse of the crocodile, a little glimpse. It's there. You see a little glimpse of it, but it's so fast, it's there and gone.
Yeah, I find it interesting too, with the way it does keep it off screen for a lot of the earlier part of the movie, and so they do a good job of, I guess going into it, the first time I saw it, I knew it was a crocodile, but I guess if you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't know until further into the movie. And apparently, the crocodile is only on screen for 3 minutes and 45 seconds for the whole movie.
Oh wow!
Yes, but you don't think that though, because they do such a good job of utilizing that screen time. And another thing about that is the special effects by Stan Winston.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We have to talk about the special effects.
So there's a combination of computer animation going on here in some shots, but there's also a fully functioning animatronic crocodile that's about 20 foot. 20 foot. It's supposed to, in the movie it says it's 30 foot, but I think it's probably around 20 foot. But it is fully functioning, and it looks terrific. Mm-hmm. And so most of the shots you see, especially when it's in the water, that it is that one. Only when it does some crazy move is when it's computer animation.
which means you bring it now. I can bring up one of my other favorite scenes, which is when Oliver Platt's in the water, and then he turns around and he has to stare into the eyes of the dragon, so to speak.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, because and he's there thinking he's going to swim with a crocodile and everything's going to be all good, but then at that point he realizes that it's not anymore.
the look on his face when he realizes, yeah, I'm not swimming with this crocodile. On his face, it was priceless. It was simply priceless. And of course, the I think David E. Kelly had the brilliant idea of using the inflatable boat to allow that character to survive, because you really think this is where Oliver Platt's going to die. He's going to get eaten by this alligator, and it is up for him.
With crocodile, but you know.
Yeah, see, we never.
I've always, it's weird because it's like it's hard to remember that it's a crocodile. To me, it's like an alligator, but then it's like it is a crocodile.
Yeah, it's a crocodile. So, well, what'll happen is when we actually do an episode on Alligator, the movie Alligator, we're gonna call that damn thing a crocodile.
I won't call it a crocodile. Okay, I know it's an alligator. I saw that movie recently with Robert Forster in it.
I love that movie. I love that movie.
It's good. It's good. I got the 4K of that one. It's good.
Oh, you got. Oh, okay.
It's a good transfer too. It looks terrific.
But I have to ask you, did you buy the Alligator 2? Or did you
I didn't. Just the first one. The Alligator 2 is a Blu-ray, not 4K, but I did consider it. Maybe I should though. I had never. I think I saw part of Alligator 2 when it was on TV, but I don't know.
But the thing is, it'd be interesting for me because it was the only time I've ever seen it is a VHS copy of it. I have a VHS copy of it now because it didn't get released on video until they did the Blu-ray version. So I've never seen a really good copy of that movie. VHS copy, obviously, over the years, is not really good.
No. I mean, yeah.
It's on my list. I'll get it eventually because I love alligator, and we're going to talk about alligator one day. I don't know when though, but it's on our list. But getting back to Lake Placid.
By the way, from alligator, they do. I think that toe is a joke. The toe when they pick it up is a direct joke to alligator.
Oh,
yeah. So and for some reason I'm blanking on exactly why that is, but I think that there it is that is connected to alligator. It was like on purpose, like connection to it.
Okay. I'll have to when I rewatch Alligator, I'll delve into it more. It's been several years since I last saw Alligator. I actually don't have a good copy of it now that I think about it.
I recommend getting that 4K from Shout Factory. It's really good, really well done.
I will have to say I'll have to be like, I've got to go pick up my 4K TV, so I'll be able to watch it in 4K pretty soon.
I think there's like there's a Blu-ray version of it that has like is like a 4K scan of the movie, so it's pretty close. I mean, I think that just watching the Blu-ray would probably be good enough.
Well, I'll tell you, it was probably gonna be better than when since I don't have the movie anymore. I think I used to have it on VHS until I sold all my VHS. Unlike you, I haven't upgraded all my movies. I had a shit ton of VHS, and unless I rewatch it, I haven't bothered to go buy it again. So
those VHS tapes are now it seemed like those are more collectible than anything else at this point. It seems like it's crazy. And and it looks like crap. Over time that video degenerates on the VHS. But I think it's the packaging maybe. But it's I don't know. I mean, have you usually when you play it, have you tried playing a VHS tape in a while?
Yeah, I play. I still buy. Okay, so audience out there, I still buy some of those special edition VHS tapes out there, and I buy films that have not been released on DVD. So
I still have a VCR. I'm not sure if it works, so maybe I'll plug it in one day. I think I got about 8 of them that I haven't sold yet. It's HVHS tapes. It's maybe 10. I got them up there. So. I do have a VHS copy of House now.
Ah, shit. So only because you guys cannot see this, as we're doing this. But for Dave, who can see this, I did recently get a couple VHS tapes. because I am a diehard fan of VHS. So I've got the VHS copy of VHS.
What's the other one?
VHS 94, VHS 99.
Well, that's probably the best way to watch the VHS movies on VHS.
I got them. There's special editions that they just create specially for that. And then,
That's
of course,
awesome.
I'm not going to open this, which is because I'm a Child's Play fan, so
Yeah.
can't see it very well. But
Is
it's
that is that a is that like a original one or is that like a newly remastered one?
this one is the documentary they just recently released. Living.
Okay.
Um, this company, what's this company? Screenbox does special edition VHS of movies, cult movies. So you can get like Terrifier and Werewolves Within and all those type of movies from them as VHS copies.
I got a steelbook of Werewolves Within the other day. It's pretty cool looking.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that to be a good movie at all, but I really enjoyed it. It's that brings us back to Lake Placid. Werewolves Within is like a very fun movie that shouldn't be fun and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what happens with Lake Placid. Lake Placid is this really fun and entertaining film, and you're not really expecting it. Unless, of course, you know or you knew who David E. Kelly was when the movie came out, which I happen to because I fucking loved Ally McBeal. So I knew who David E. Kelly was.
When I saw it, I didn't realize David Kelly had written it. I went to go see it because it's like about a killer crocodile or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. It was better than I was expecting. It's the sort of movie too, for me, that I can watch like several times, without like getting tired of it because of the script, I think, and the characters and stuff like that so there's a lot to like in it.
Yeah, there is, and it's one of those movies where even if you can watch it with someone who doesn't like horror films, they can watch this film. This film has, other than a couple a severed head and a severed toe, is pretty bloodless for most of the film. You don't really see a whole bunch of blood when the bear gets killed or even when the cow gets killed. It's very little because they're so focused on the characters and the comedy between the characters, and the crocodile is just the what do you call it, the catalyst to get these great characters together. So
that did you know that bear, other than the part where he gets killed, is a real bear?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it had a real bear out there, and it was a trained bear, and it was scared of the fake alligator. But yeah, I would have assumed the whole time it was computer generated bear, but it was real.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I guess when I guarantee you nowadays they would never use a real bear. I don't think they used any real bears in Cocaine Bear, so I don't think they would have used any real bears in this day and age. They would have used only when they had to. Because
I will say there were no real crocodiles in this movie, but there were some real alligators.
with the little baby ones at the very end?
Those are alligators, and they lost some of them, so so they might still be in the lake.
Oh my, that's hilarious! Oh my god!
Yeah, so they had them like tied to something, but a few of them got away, and they're like, "Oops."
Jesus. So that's actually a good point in our episode where we should discuss our final thoughts on the movie for Lake Placid. What kind of thoughts would you like to leave the audience for this film, Dave?
But I guess another note that I didn't talk about is the cow. We talked a little bit about the cow that they put on Betty White's character feeds the cow to the alligator. But I said alligator, crocodile. If we talk about alligator, I will not say crocodile. I can guarantee you that's not going to happen.
I will hold it to you when we do this.
Yeah, there's no way that's going to happen. But yeah, but that when it's on the helicopter and it's in the air and it flies up, which is a real helicopter. But that cow is an animatronic cow, and it looks friggin' terrific. It looks like a real cow.
Okay. Well, considering Stan, I that would be something I wouldn't be surprised if Stan Winston put together for the film. Kind of like there was something else in that I thought that he did an excellent job with. Shit, Oh, I can't remember now. But Stan Winston probably produced a lot, or his shop probably produced a lot of the great the stuff that we see in there. The moose body and the corpses and yeah, the corpse I did want to mention when Bridget Fonda first sees the half corpse in the morgue, stuff like that. I can guarantee you Stan Winston probably had his shop do some amazing work on all that because it all looks good. I mean, this is in effect, this is not a high budget film. Although I don't know how much the budget is offhand.
Oh
Um,
yeah, okay. Yeah,
I do
it's so the budget is actually pretty large for this. It is between like 27 and 35 million,
yeah,
and it did make a profit about 56 million. So,
yeah. I knew it was profitable, but I always forget about budgets for films like this that aren't like independent
but
horror
yeah,
films.
I
You
guess
know,
but the budget though, you can tell that they did a good job with the resources that they had. But there is a budget, and I think they had enough time to shoot this the way they wanted to shoot it. Um, and I think a lot of that shows. And I think something we didn't mention, which we probably shouldn't even mention, but there are a lot of sequels to this movie.
I was trying not to mention that, but you
I've
did.
never watched any of them, and I probably won't never will.
Fortunately, I have seen them all except for Lake Placid versus Anaconda, which in general you can't really do a lake versus an anaconda, but we all know it's really the crocodile versus a giant fucking anaconda. And the only reason why I saw those movies is because of the actress, which I can't remember her name now.
Like Robert England's in that
Robin
one.
English, yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. He's actually in two of the other ones. In the one of the sequels has Colin Ferguson in it from that Eureka show, who's a good that's a good choice for the cop character. It's similar to Bill Pullman's character, I would assume.
Yeah, I ended up watching the sequels because Yancey Butler was in several of them. Yeah, I had to remember when her character started. She was in the third one, the fourth one, and then came back for Lake
Oh
Placid,
wow.
Anaconda. I Yancey, if you're listening to this, I will have to admit I had a crush on you back in the day, and I was like, I watched these really bad sequels of Lake Placid mostly because you were in them. But yeah, they weren't very good. But Robert England looked like he was having a blast in these films, just chewing the fat, just like Yancey Butler did. What's it? John Schneider was in the second one. Although I don't remember much about the second one at all.
John Snyder's a good choice too. I like him, Dukes and Hazzard, and he's good, really good in Smallville.
Well,
But
of small indie movies that he did a good job in, but for some reason I can't remember Lake Placid 2 at all. But I do kind of remember Yancey Butler being the third, the fourth one in the Lake Placid versus Anaconda.
if they put out a set of Lake Placid movies and they're like, here's the box set, I would probably buy it.
You can get a really
That's
crappy.
how ridiculous I am. I might watch them after that. I don't
Uh,
know.
you can watch. They have a really crappy DVD box set of the third, fourth. Wait,
No. They got to. To me. It's got to be. They got to take the movies and do like a remaster of the shit. What they like made for like sci-fi channel or something.
yes, they were. Yes, they were. And I forgot there's actually another one. I forgot about Lake Placid Legacy. That was the last one. I want to say I knew there was another one. They just kept.
Isn't like Tony Todd's in some of them too, right?
I don't know. I don't remember any of them.
Oh yeah. That's the problem. I mean, so you watch them and then it's just like, what happened? But this first one though, and that's the thing. That's kind of why I don't want to watch the other ones because this first one is like I remember it very well, and it is very well done. And the script's great, and it looks terrific. Even though obviously CGI in some instances with the alligator, or fuck, I said it again, the crocodile. You started this shit calling it an alligator, but in general though, I mean, it looks good and it holds up really well. So I mean, I think I've seen some criticism that I don't agree with about the characters not being developed well enough, but I think the approach here, we got like an adventure movie with these four different which I guess like I've heard in interviews of described as extreme characters thrown into a situation where they're more having to deal with their different personalities than the threat. But I mean, I don't know if you necessarily have to have like a huge development. I think it's just a lot of fun and just you almost connect with these characters and you can tell the actors are connected with them immediately, you know?
I will agree with you on that because I believe that the film itself is designed to take a bunch of characters that the audience doesn't think should be. So this is how I would see it. If this is like the Breakfast Club. You take all these characters who should not have any connection with one another. You stick them all together in an extreme situation, and by sticking them in this extreme situation, you then understand them more. That's essentially what the basic function of the Breakfast Club is. That's the central function of the four characters in this film. You don't want them to die. You end up loving these characters, even though in real life they probably would never, ever be friends. But at the end of this movie, you know they're all going to be friends and they'll probably go have a barbecue in 3 months when it's summertime. And you are glad that you went on this adventure with them. Hell, they might even invite Betty White's character to this barbecue.
They let her get away with a lot of shit. Like to begin with, she already goes in his and tells them that she killed her husband, and then they don't know what to do about it. You know?
Yeah, I do have to admit that Betty White does steal this film because she's so open with everything. Like if you pay any attention from that very first time the characters meet her, you would realize that she's the one that causes all the problems. She admits she killed her husband. She just doesn't admit how he died, but she said she killed him. He's buried. And they're right. They could dig him up right where she says he's buried, and he'd be there. He just may be missing an arm or a leg or something because it got eaten off. But those are my final words on Lake Placid. It is by far one of the most fun giant, nature versus man creature movies out there. That's really fun. Not only because the director Steve Meyer did a great job with directing the film and giving it a great look, but also because the cast works so well together. I think this film holds up because of those two main things. And I will admit that I love John Ottman's music as well because I didn't get a chance to say anything about that. But John Ottman's music is the perfect music to the flow and the pacing for this film. So.
Well, a lot of times the music like that is like you watch the movie and you don't think about it, and it really does a lot for a movie. You don't think about it. If the music's wrong, you notice it, but if it's right, a lot of times you just go with it. But if you were to watch this movie without the music, you would have a completely different feel for what's going on in a lot of the scenes. That's a good shout out for the composer. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I only know who the composer is because I actually own the soundtrack to this movie because I love John Ottman's work.
You listen to that shit in the car? You driving somewhere and you're like, I'm gonna put this shit there.
Dude, if you knew my collection of soundtrack scores, you'd be like, what the hell, dude? Dude, I have a huge collection of soundtrack scores. But I may never watch these movies more than 2, maybe 3 times. I've probably seen Lake Placid 5 times. Guarantee you, I've listened to the score for this movie 100 times. I have a huge collection of John Ottman's music in my collection. So, that being said, I want to thank Dave and our audiences for listening to our rant about Lake Placid.
Lake Placid 2.
About a crocodile, not an alligator. And I hope that you take with it a lot more than what you put in, because this movie is actually a very entertaining, very adventurous film that's very effective, and you get rewarded by watching it more than once because it's so damn entertaining. With that, I want to thank you all for joining us on Conversation in Horror. I want you to go out, seek out some of our previous episodes because we've done a lot of great episodes that you may have missed. Also, when you find us on social media, make sure to subscribe to us because without your continuous support, we can't continue to provide you with these conversations about some of the best and brightest in cult and classic horror films. Thank you so much for joining us for the show, and have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.